Somewhere inside you, a version of your life is still running. A job you no longer have. A relationship that ended long ago. A version of yourself that quietly stopped existing. The calendar moved on. So why does part of you still live there? You know it's over. You can say it out loud. That relationship ended. That chapter is closed. I'm not that person anymore. And yet, some part of you keeps returning to it, like visiting a house you no longer live in, just to see if the lights are still on. This isn't just nostalgia, it's something heavier. Psychologists often describe a related pattern through the Zeigarnik effect, our tendency to remember and mentally revisit unfinished experiences more than completed ones. When something never feels fully resolved, the mind keeps the file open. Not because you're weak, not because you've failed to move on, because your brain still believes there is something left to understand. Here's the part worth remembering. You are not behind. You are not healing incorrectly. There is no perfect timeline for letting go. Carrying an ended chapter doesn't prove you failed to move forward. It often proves that chapter meant something, and your mind hasn't yet found a place to store what it meant. Grief isn't limited to losing people. We grieve old careers, old dreams, old identities, old versions of ourselves. When that grief remains unfinished, it doesn't disappear. It quietly moves into the present, asking to be noticed. Here's why this happens. According to narrative identity theory, your sense of who you are isn't fixed. It's an ongoing story, connecting your past, your present, and your future into one continuous thread. When an important chapter ends suddenly, or without the closure you expected, the story doesn't know how to transition. The thread doesn't break cleanly, it simply keeps hanging, waiting for the next sentence. There's another force at work. Behavioral economists describe the sunk cost tendency, our tendency to remain attached to something because of how much we've already invested, even when it no longer serves us. The more of yourself you gave to a person, a dream, or a life, the harder your mind finds it to call it the past. Letting go doesn't only mean losing what could have been. It also means accepting that what you already gave cannot be recovered. That is its own kind of grief. So how do you move forward? Start by naming what actually ended. Be specific. Instead of saying, "I lost everything," try, "That chapter ended because." Giving loss clear language helps the mind know what it's carrying. Next, remember this. The person you were then made sense in the life you were living. You are not betraying that version of yourself by becoming someone different. Sometimes the brain also benefits from a symbolic ending. Write the letter you never sent. Pack away the objects you no longer need. Visit the place one final time. Rituals don't erase grief, they simply give the brain a clear marker that something has changed. Then, redirect your attention. Don't only remove the old story, begin investing in a new one. Even a small purpose gives an open loop somewhere new to place its energy. And if the memories return, don't assume you failed. Healing doesn't move in a straight line. It arrives like waves. A returning wave doesn't mean the ocean is moving backward. Here's the image to keep. Imagine your past as a room inside of a house. You don't need to destroy the room. You don't need to pretend it never existed. You simply close the door gently, deliberately, so you can fully live in the room you're standing in today. The life that ended doesn't ask to be forgotten. It only asks to become part of your story, instead of the place where your story stopped. You are allowed to close a chapter, even if it never received the ending you hoped for. The story isn't unfinished because you're weak.
It's unfinished because it mattered. Now, it's time to write the next line, not in the life that already ended, but in the one that's quietly waiting for you now.